In 1985, Colleen Drake filed a police report, but it wasn't for a missing person, or a crime, or even something tangible. What she claimed missing was an entire town, Kendale Oaks, Texas. It was where she'd grown up, a small rural town northwest of San Antonio. She remembered the old school, the question-mark-shaped lake, the diner called Maggie's Slice, and the red brick church without a steeple. But when she returned after several years away, it was all gone. Not destroyed, gone. No highway sign, no exit ramp, no zip code in the postal system. Locals in nearby towns had never heard of it. There were no records in the library, no mention in any Texas census. As far as the world was concerned, Kendale Oaks had never existed. But Colleen remembered it perfectly, and she was about to uncover the truth behind its disappearance, a classified CIA experiment known as Operation Mirrorveil. Colleen's first step was to visit state archives in San Antonio. She expected to find at least some trace of school registration, a utility bill, a phone listing. But there was nothing. Kendale Oaks didn't exist in any known state or federal registry. Even Google Maps returned nothing. She then spoke with residents of surrounding areas, hoping to find someone who remembered the town. Most shrugged. A few claimed it sounded familiar, but couldn't place it. Then, finally, she found Daryl Wexler, a retired radio technician who worked in rural Texas during the 1970s and 80s. When she asked him about Kendale Oaks, he went silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Yeah, I remember it. I built a tower out there once, but they made me take it down. Said it was a test site. Paid cash, no questions. That tower," he said, transmitted on 105.9 FM and had unusual hardware, non-standard coils, and wave dampeners. "I was told not to touch anything but the base. Real weird setup," he added. This strange tower turned out to be the first real clue. A year later, Colleen uncovered a declassified document from 2012 mentioning a project codenamed Mirrorveil. It was a one-page summary with most of the content redacted, but what remained was shocking. The objective: to evaluate feasibility of localized memory suppression via non-lethal electromagnetic fields in tandem with environmental cue removal and narrative destabilization. The target location was referred to only as K. Colleen became obsessed. She traced the call letters 105.9 KTXO back to an experimental rural station, licensed for localized signal testing. The signal had no music, no talk shows, just a constant low-frequency hum mixed with randomized pulses. At the same time, Kendale Oaks was being slowly deconstructed. According to testimonies later gathered, street signs began disappearing. Names of shops were painted over. Festival announcements stopped arriving. And then came the behavioral symptoms. Residents began experiencing confusion, insomnia, memory lapses. A few had seizures. One high school teacher, Miriam Lopez, began keeping a journal. In it, she described days where she would wake up not knowing the month. She wrote, "The radio never stops. Even when it's off, I hear it. I think something's inside the signal. I think it's in us now." Weeks later, she vanished. No death certificate. No job record. Her journal turned up decades later in a box sold at an estate sale. And Colleen wasn't the only one asking questions. In 2010, a Stanford neuroscientist named Paul Lagrange conducted a spatial memory experiment in Texas. He asked 50 adults to draw maps from memory of small towns near San Antonio. In over 30% of the sketches, a town labeled Kendale or Ken Oaks appeared, always in the same area. When asked why they drew it, most said they didn't know. Lagrange became curious. He dug into land ownership records, road rezoning files, and aerial maps. Eventually, he received a phone call. The voice on the other end said, "You're in the Veil. Stop now." 2 weeks later, he suffered a fatal stroke. His notes were seized by federal agents who claimed they were with the CDC. Colleen wasn't done. She compiled everything: interviews, maps, witness reports, even the drone footage from an urban explorer who flew over fenced federal land near Bourne in 2017. At timestamp to 13, you can see a rusted mailbox with the words Maggie's Slice, home of the best peach cobbler. The video was removed days later. The YouTuber's account was deleted, but by then, others had seen it. Comments flooded in. People claimed to remember eating there. They described the menu, the smell, even the waitress Eileen with her red apron and bright lipstick. None of them could find a record of her, but they knew her face. They remembered her voice. Then came the recovered schematic from the 1980s. It detailed a three-phase operation. Phase 1. Broadcast theta range M fields via localized FM frequency. Phase 2. Remove environmental anchors, names, maps, events. Phase 3. Deploy narrative destabilization through controlled news, community disorientation, and staged disappearances. The goal? To determine if a collective memory could be surgically erased without violence. Kendale Oaks was the test subject, but the veil wasn't perfect. Some residents remembered. Others had flashbacks, dreams, or inexplicable nostalgia. One woman claimed she had never lived in Texas, but when shown a map pointed directly at where Kendale Oaks would have been and said, "I had a dream about that place every week for 10 years. Another man said he drove past it once in 1983, but couldn't recall what he saw. Only that he felt ill, like something was pulling him backward. Stories like these began surfacing more and more after 2010, and yet, no official agency has acknowledged the operation. No federal document has confirmed the experiment, and every FOIA request referencing Mirrorveil is denied or returned blank. Still, the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. Map anomalies, memory leaks, records of zip code allocations that don't match existing towns, people who never met describing the same church, the same lake, the same festival with the same peach cobbler contest. Colleen tried to go public. No outlet would publish her. One editor told her, "We've been told not to touch that." Her apartment was broken into twice. Her files were erased. Her backup drives disappeared. In 2021, she vanished. No police report was filed. No obituary was published. Her name, too, began to disappear. And so, the question is no longer whether Kendale Oaks existed. The real question is, how many other towns like it have been erased? What if this was only a prototype? What if Mirrorveil was a success, not a failure, and became the basis for future operations? In other parts of the world? In 1994, a Kazakh village was removed from regional maps overnight. In 2006, a neighborhood in Chongqing was rezoned and leveled without warning. In 2019, a town in Chile had its name stripped from all national records. Always the same pattern: chemical incident, infrastructure failure, administrative error. But the locals always say the same thing: we remember. So what is memory? A personal archive or a programmable illusion? If a town can be erased from maps, from photos, and even from minds, what else can be rewritten? This has been the Null Brief, where the erased becomes real, and the forgotten never truly disappears.